All right. Okay. So welcome back, everyone. Just want to confirm if everyone has been able to get the um model linked up and where we are right now. So let me just know in the chat box if you are where we are right now. Let me just know by hands if you've been able to download the file and link it into a new project like we've done. Just let me know. Okay, we're still waiting for some responses. If or rather, if you are still in the process of doing it, you could also let me know in the chat box. Okay, if you are facing challenges as well, also just make mention as well. So we just want to make sure that everybody, a majority of us are following as we go on. All right, so I believe we're still in the process of doing it. Okay, so probably I would give some more time. I want to make sure that we are at least at this stage. Okay, all right, so if anybody has finished or is in the process, you can just let us know in the chat box. Okay, I see a comment from Deborah. Okay, was not able to access the material on the log file. Ahmad, okay, I see a hand from you as well.
Yeah, Victor also told me the same, but then I will be creating that folder.
Okay, do you have access to the file? Hello, Ahmad, just want to confirm if you have access to the file.
Just a moment.
Okay.
Let me find my folder. Yeah, so guys, what we have to do, if it's the shopping plaza project that we're talking about, then there is a link to materials. Everyone has that link.
Okay.
So when you open your folder, there is you'll see it's called materials. So when you press on it, then you'll see shopping plaza project.
Okay. I just want to confirm if that's the case for everybody else. Deborah, have you been able to see it? Just want to confirm. Okay, she said no. Okay. Do you just want to confirm? Do you see the materials folder? The materials folder. Just open it up.
Sorry, which index are you? Can you comment your index so that I quickly check?
Okay. Okay. Deborah, can you let us know your students folder? What the name of your students folder is? Is it 001, 002, okay, 016? Let's confirm that. All right. So yes, you would see a materials folder. Do you see a materials folder inside? Okay, just want to confirm. Do you see a materials folder? Oh, that's quite strange. Or do you see your logbook? Just want to confirm. Okay, I think what you should do is refresh that page. You should see a materials folder inside there. All right, so just refresh. So if you do see it, do let me know. Okay. All right. So just I would also be checking as well for your response. All right. Well, because of time, I think I'll continue as well.
Actually, I just noticed something.
Okay.
Let me just try with another folder and see because I tried to look at the sharing option. Her email doesn't have access to that materials link.
Oh,
I'm wondering because she's supposed to have access to the whole student folder. I'm
yeah,
thinking
yeah,
with another.
yeah. It is actually. Okay. Do you?
Actually,
I think she sees it. Do you see it now, Deborah? I think she
yeah, I
sees
don't think anyone has access. I don't think anyone has access to the link.
to the link. Okay. All right. Let me.
Maybe for now, what I can do is I can just quickly share the so that we continue with this class. Then you can handle this issue later. I can just quickly
Okay.
share the link.
Okay. All right. That'll be fine.
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
and
So I'll.
I think I'll make it accessible for anyone who has a link so that they, they can access it.
Okay. All right. So the link has been shared via the chat. So if anybody is seeing it, so you have access to it. I'm actually surprised myself because made it so anybody with the link should have access to it. So it's quite strange that it's like this right now. Okay. All right. So you could access the link from the drive folder that Ahmad just shared right now. You see it in the Google chat or rather the Google Meets and chat box. So let's continue from where we are. So right now we've gone ahead and loaded this here into the project, and it looks like not so much, right? We're just seeing some sort of cutting panels on doors over here on the floors. Now the reason for this is because of what we call a discipline filter. Now, if for instance I wanted to see all of those other elements such as the walls and the doors, all of those features, all I need to do, for instance, is I need to come over here to the properties box of the 3D view, and then we're going to scroll to where we have this here under graphics. So we see here right now it's been set to the structural discipline. Now the structural discipline is only going to show a majority of structural elements. So if I change this into coordination and then I click on apply, now I can see more of those features, but we still have an issue. We have everything being in wireframe view, so see-through. If I wanted to change that as well, all I need to do is come to the bottom of my screen, and then you're going to see an option called visual style. I'm going to click here and then change the visual style here to hidden line. So now that we have it on hidden line, I can now see more details. Some other things that you may take note of is that we're missing a roof. If I wanted to see that roof, for instance, all I need to do is just need to scroll down over here in my 3D view, and then so rather under graphics, you're going to see an option called visibility graphics override. So now you can set exactly what you want to see in a view. I'm going to click on edit, and then you should see this window come up over here. Sorry, it was on my second screen. So you want to be under model categories here, and under this category name search, I'm going to search here for roof. And you can see here that anything that has to do with roof is actually turned off. So if I come over here and turn this on, and then I click OK, you can now see now that I have the roof in the view. Alright. So just a quick recap. If you wanted everything to look exactly as it seems, after you've loaded it into the Revit project, you need to come over here into the properties box. Then under graphics, we see here the discipline. Change it from structural to coordination. After you've done that, you want to come over here to the bottom of your screen and change the visual style here to hidden. Then come back to the properties box here and then change the visibility graphics override by clicking on edit. You come here to model categories and then you search here for roof and you turn it on over here and then click OK. Alright, good. So now that I've done that, I can now go ahead and then work with this model. Okay. Now if I go over here and then try and click on the model, you'll notice that I can't select those individual elements. But if I select it, you can see the information here is that is referenced as a Revit link, meaning that I can't edit any of these elements because it exists in another project. But I want to make use of some particular elements to start off with. An element I want to work with is what we call these elevations. So we see here that these are the elevations that belong to this project, but these two are the ones that belong in this project. Now to bring in the elevations from this project, from the architectural model, all I need to do is I need to come here to a plan view, or rather let's do that from the 3D view. It seems that will be easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here to the Collaborate tab. Under the Collaborate tab over here, we have the option here to coordinate between two different projects, and we're going to use the copy monitor tool. Now how the copy monitor tool is going to work is that it's going to bring in these three elevations over here, which is the ground floor, the first floor, and the roof level. And depending on any change that is made to this model in the architecture, I will be alerted when I'm working in the structure. So we have some sort of collaboration in progress as I'm working on the project. Now to make this happen, I need to come over here and click on copy monitor. And because we have a Revit link, I'm going to select the select link here. Once I've done that, I'm going to move and then select my Revit link just like this. And I'm going to click on the copy option over here. So click on copy. I want to select this elevation. So I move my cursor to the elevation. And just before clicking on it, you have to be sure that it's exactly what you want. So just by looking at the details here, we see here we have Revit links. Oh, it's gone away. Let me move my cursor to it again. Revit links. We have here is a linked model, and at the end of it, you see here that is the level, the ground floor. So I'm going to click on it, and when I do that, it's going to bring it into the project. So it's going to take some time. Alright, good. So it's been brought into the project. You can see some other information as well, such as warnings. So it's not anything we need to worry about for now. So I'm going to close it up. Now, if I want to do it as well for the first and the roof level, what I want to do is that once I've selected copy, I click on multiple. I can make a selection of these two levels by clicking, holding on my left mouse button, and making a selection over like this. Once I have selected the two, I go over here and click on finish. When I do that, you can now see that those two have also been brought in as well. When I am done, I just click outside, and I want to make sure that I click on finish. If you click on cancel, any other change that you made here would not be executed. If you can't find this finish window here, make sure you click on copy monitor so you see it. I'm going to click on finish, and now we have those three levels available. But you're going to be noticing something. We have the levels here showing as black, as opposed to the ones that were already in the project, which is level 1 and level 2, showing as blue on the grid head. Now this is a clear indication that there are no planned views for this level. So you can see that level 1, level 2 have views in the project browser, but the GF, the first floor, and the roof level do not have views. And the reason for that is because we just imported it into the project. So for me to create views for them, all I need to do is come here to the view tab, and I click on plan views. I'm going to select structural plans because that's what we're working with. And you will see this dialog box come up. It's on my second screen again. So you see this dialog come up on your screen. I want to select all these three views. So I'm going to select the first one, hold down my shift key and select the third, and then click OK. When I do that, you can now see that it's going to create views for all of those. I'm going to go ahead and close and come back here to the 3D view, so any view that is open. You can now see now they are highlighted as blue, meaning that I can reference them. For the level 1 and the level 2 that we have, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to come to the structural plan in the project browser. I'm going to click on level 1. I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to delete. I'm also going to do the same thing as well for the level 2 and their other referencing views as well. So I click on this and I hold down my shift key to select anyone I don't want. I can right click and I can delete. If you still have them in the project, it means that they are referenced to other views such as probably ceiling plans as it is. So what I can do in this case here is that I can select them in the 3D view and I can press delete and then click OK to delete them. So likewise as well, delete this. So we are only left with the ones we want to work with. I also want to do the same thing as well for grid lines. Right now we can't see the grid lines in the 3D view. So I'm going to open up a plan view and then so we can see those grid lines. Instead of coming over here to the project browser by double clicking here, I can also open up a view by coming to the grid head, or rather the level head rather, and double clicking to open it up. So right now I can see here the grid heads are associated with this project. I'm going to come back here to the collaborate tab and I'm going to click on copy monitor. I'm going to select link. I'm going to move my cursor to the Revit link, just make sure that it is what is highlighted. So I click on it. And I'm going to come over here and click on copy. I'm going to select multiple because I have multiple grids. I'm going to click and drag to make a selection of the grids from here to here. And I also want to select these grids also, so I hold down my control key to make multiple selections. When I'm done, I come over here and click on finish to bring those in to the project. Just going to close this one in over here for now. Once I've done that, I make sure that I come over here to the copy monitor and then click on finish. Now, just like I explained earlier on, if I click on this grid line, for instance, you see that it's going to have this heart pulse icon beside it, meaning that if anything happens to it in the original model, which is the architectural, you would be alerted over here. That means that it is monitored. Alright, good. So we've imported the grid lines. Now let's go ahead and now start looking at where we can place our structural elements. Or at this point here, I'll probably just want to ask if anybody has been able to get access to the file. I do apologize for that as well. So if you have, just let me know in the chat box. For the sake of time, I'll just continue and I'll make the recording as early as possible. Probably the last part of this recording as early as possible. Okay, good. So now that we are here, I'm just going to go back here into the 3D view. Now we want to place structural elements in the building. So we are going to be looking at where we can place them. Now the first type of structural elements we are going to be working with are columns. So to place the columns, I'm going to go to the ground floor plan and look for where I can place them. Now a good tip for you to place structural columns is inside walls. Right now I can't see any walls in this view here, which is actually quite silly. So to do that, it's just like I mentioned before. In the ground floor plan, we also see here the discipline. It's been set to structural. I'm going to change this here to coordination, then click on apply. So right now I can now see the walls in this view. But we have an issue over here. We don't see the walls or the doors in this area. And the reason for that is because of those particular walls here are not actually labeled as walls. They're actually mullions. So mullions are used for cutting walls and panels. So those are the framings for cutting walls, those glass panels. So just like we did for the roof earlier on, I'm going to come over here to visibility graphics overrides. I'm going to search for mullions. And I'm going to turn this on. So this is cutting wall mullions. If I click on apply, you can now see that I now have those mullions available. The last thing we don't see are the doors. Now, the doors is not something I may necessarily want to see because if the doors are gone, I can visibly see an opening. But if I wanted to, I can also search here and then put here door, and then I can turn it on. So right now the things that have been doors is turned on, but we don't see something such as the elevation swing, or rather the plan swing. So the plan swing is what we want to see. So if I turn on the plan swing, if I click on apply, you can now see those doors visibly. Alright, great. So let's go ahead and now determine where we can place our columns. So these are the columns that are going to be carrying the beams, which will the beams in turn be carrying the slabs. Let's start with the columns. So if we could stop here for today, that would be fine, as everybody prepares and then starts at this point. So we'll continue probably when we have our next meeting. So let's place columns. To place a column, we need to go to the category where we can model columns. To do that, I'm going to come over here to the Structures tab. Under the Structures tab, under Structure panel, you see here different modeling elements. We have here beams, we have here walls, we have columns, we have floors, truss, brace, and beam systems. We're going to come over here and click on Structural Column. Before I click on it as well, you will see information about how it works, as well as the shortcut, which is CL. I'm going to click on it to activate the command. And before I place a column, you're going to notice at the top of the screen here, I have some placement options or modification options. We have an option to rotate after the placement. So if, for instance, here the column is not going to be in a straight section, I can decide to rotate it after the placement. If I turn this on, I'll be able to actually rotate it once I place it. But in this case here, I don't want to do that. I also have the options to actually determine how it's going to be placed. By default, it has been set here to depth. If I leave it on depth, it's going to be placing the columns on the ground floor and it's going to be going downwards. If I change this, for instance, here to height, if I place the column, it will place it on this particular ground floor and it's going to be going upwards. In this case here, we want to model columns that go from the ground floor to the first floor. So it is better if we use the height option. If in the event we're modeling columns that go from the ground floor to the foundation floor, which is going to be below the ground floor, we would set it ideally to be on depth. But I'm going to leave it on height. After I've set height, I'm going to select this to specify the level I want. Right now it has been set to unconnected. Now if it is going to be on unconnected, it means that I can specify a height of the column. So you can see that I can actually put the value here. But if I specify a particular level that's already been defined in the project, like the first floor, you can see I no longer have the opportunity to edit the value. So after I see these placement options, we have other things as well under the properties dialog box. So if you've been looking at my screen, you see that right now I have a steel column section. In this case here, for this project, we are going to be working with reinforced concrete. So what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to change this profile here from a steel profile to a concrete profile. Now this is a good time for me to explain families and types. In Revit, we have families and we have what we call types, just like I explained earlier on. So for instance here, let's look at this concrete. The name of the family is M concrete rectangular column. Under this family, we have different types. So for instance, we have 300 by 450, we have 450 by 600, and then we have 600 by 750. Meaning that I can select a particular section size based on this family. I can also add more families as we go on in the project, and we'll do that very shortly. We've already established that we want to use a concrete family, so I'm going to select any of the types under it. So I'm going to select this 300 by 450. It's asking me to save the project. Right now I don't want to save, just close that up. So when I change it to concrete, you can see and I have different parameters over here, and we'll talk about this as we go on. So now that I've changed it to concrete, I can go ahead and now determine where I want to place it. At the top of your screen as well, you will see some other options for placement. Now we want to talk about this in detail for now. Now we can see that I can decide to place my column inside the wall, anywhere inside the wall, so it's going to stay hidden. In this case here, I'm going to place my column at this wall intersection over here. It looks like a very ideal place to place it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move to the column intersection, and I'm going to click to place it. Once I'm done, I can just press modify to exit the command. Now we can see here that we have a column inside that section, or rather inside that place. And the beautiful thing about Revit is that if, for instance, I go to the 3D view and then I go to that particular area, that should be at the side, we can as well see the column on that plane here. So we know that we decided it to go from the ground to the first floor. That's why it looks like this. The beauty about Revit is that if I click on the column, for instance, instead of me going to model another column going from the first to the roof floor, I can just come over here and then change the top level, for instance, here to roof level. If I click on apply, it's going to be parametric in nature, meaning that it will just determine where the roof floor is and go there. So if, for instance, I go to the first floor structural plan and open it up, we can visibly also see that column over here as well. I'm going to close the first floor plan. We don't need that for now. And let's go back here to the ground floor. Now, just like I explained earlier on, some things we're looking at in the architecture is the width of the wall. So now we've determined that the width of the wall is 225, but this column section here says otherwise. We have a 300 by 450 mm column, meaning that it is 300 in the width and then 450 mm in the depth. Let's go ahead and change that. To do that, we are going to create a new type. After selecting the column like this, I'm going to come over here and click on edit type. When I do that, you can see here the family that we're working with, which is the M concrete rectangular column. You can as well see the list of the types if I click on this. To create a new type, I'm going to come over here and click on duplicate, and you are going to see this window pop up on your screen. So I'm going to call this here a 225. Let's call this 225 by 225 mm column, and then I click OK. But it's just like you've guessed, that doesn't actually change the width of the column or section of the column. We need to change the dimensions over here for the B and the H. So what I do is I come inside here and I change the breadth to 225 and I change the width here to 225 as well. Once I've done that, I can click on apply, and you can see that I now have a 225 by 225 with the remaining types over here. If I click OK, you can now see that it's going to change it to that new section size. Now the beauty about Revit is that in the event that I design and this should change to a bigger section, all I need to do is just click on it and then change it to the type I want. So if I wanted it to be 300 by 450, I can change it like that. But in this case, I want to maintain the 225 by 225. So I can just go ahead and undo by using the shortcut Ctrl Z, or we see here the undo button here. We've placed a column inside this view. Now let's go ahead and place some columns some places where it may be ideal. Before I do that, I want to be sure I can always locate a column in this view. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to click on this column. I'm going to right click on it, and you're going to see an option called override graphics in view. I'm going to select by category, and what I'm going to do is that I'm going to change the cut pattern here. So under cut pattern, I'm going to change the pattern here to a solid fill, and I'm going to change the color here to black, and then click OK. Once I've done that, I click on apply and I click OK. So I can visibly identify where the column is. Alright, so at this point here, we've short past time. Just want to ask if we could just go on for the next 5 minutes before we call the program to an end. So if everybody is okay with that, just let me know in the chat box. I do respect everybody's time as well. Alright, so Ahmad said it's okay. Alright, Vivian said it's okay as well. Alright, Felix gave a thumbs up. Alright, okay. So let's quickly go ahead and round up. Alright, so Victor Juma said, I only have an inbuilt column type which is UC universal. Can they be updated? Yes, they can. In fact, I'll probably show you how to do that right now. So if you don't have the M concrete rectangular column, what you could do, for instance, is that you can go over here to the Insert tab. Under the Insert tab, you are going to see this option called Load Family. If I click on it, I have a window that comes up like this. On the side, I'm going to locate this folder directory, right, which is my Autodesk Revit libraries, Autodesk your Revit version, the libraries. I'm going to come over here and look for English, and I'll look for where I have my files saved. So let's say UK. I'm going to come over here and search for structural columns. Look for the material you want, which is concrete, and then select the concrete rectangular family type. So we see concrete rectangular.rfa. When I do that, I can click on open. Once I do that, it's going to load that Revit column into the project, so you should have it available. So if I come back here to the structures and click on column, you can now see that concrete rectangular will be there. So aside from the one that I had earlier on, which was the M concrete rectangular column, I have a different family called concrete rectangular. All right. So I hope that was able to help. Okay. Let's go ahead and place some other columns and see if we can call it a meeting for today. So to place more columns, I'm just going to come over here and click on column. And then I make sure that I set it to the type I want, which is 225 by 225. And then make sure this placement sets are set up as well. I'm going to place one over here. All right, good. Let's place one over here. Let's place one over here. Now, the decisions for placing the columns is by making sure that they are not too far apart. Now, this may differ depending on the type of projects that you are working on. So right now, let's now explain the decision for placing the columns like this. I expect, for instance, after placing the columns that I will model beams. So I expect the beam to go in this direction. Now, it's ideal because the beam is going to be hidden inside this wall. If, for instance, here I had, let me go ahead and put columns. If I had columns here, here, and here for some odd reason, right? The disadvantage is that if I'm placing my beam, it's going to be going through the middle of the room. Another disadvantage as well is that you can visibly see that this column here is going to be interfering the cutting wall feature. And you can as well see that in the 3D view. So if I see here that this column should not be here. Alright. Likewise as well, another thing you should take into consideration is the distance between the two columns. If I decide to use my dimension command and measure from here to here, we can see here that that's about 4.35 meters. This will ideally determine how long your beams will span and the design criteria. A good rule of thumb is that you don't want to make your beams as long as, let's say, between 6 to 8 meters. You don't want it to be as long as, let's say, 6 to 8 meters for normal residential or commercial buildings. But it is still acceptable by the way, if it's your designer's choice. It just means that you'll be spending or having larger beam depths. So a good range is 6 below or 8 below, depends on you. Let's go ahead and delete these columns by clicking on them and pressing delete key. So I've placed 6 columns. Let's assume I want to place those other columns as well on the other area. What I can do, for instance, is that I can use another tool for placing columns, which is called the placing columns as grids. To do that, I come back here and click on columns. What I'm going to do now is that I'm going to select the column I want, but this time around I'm going to click on add grids. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to make a selection of the grids that I want to place it at by clicking and dragging over the grids. And I want to make sure I select the intersecting grids as well. So I'm going to select these grids like this, and by holding down the Control key. But you notice if I select it from the top here, they don't highlight. To make a selection where they will be highlighted, we need to make a crossing window from the bottom left or bottom right. So if I make this selection by holding down my Control key, you can now see I've selected them. And when I've done that, I can go ahead and click on finish. So just like that, I have placed the columns. When I'm done, I click on modify. But we have an issue with some other columns over here. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to make a selection by clicking and dragging over those columns and then pressing delete. Alright, good. So we have an ideal position for where we can place our columns, and this seems like a very simple layout. Now let's go ahead and check it in the 3D view. If I go to the 3D view as well, you can see that most of these columns have been placed, right? I'm going to go and change this one here to be placed on the first floor. So I click on apply. Now in the 3D view, if I wanted to see the columns better, what I can do is that I can make the walls transparent. To make the walls transparent, what I'm going to do is that in the 3D view, I'm going to come over here to visibility graphics overrides and click on edit. Under here, I'm going to look for Revit links because the walls I want to be transparent should be what do you call it again? The Revit link, because we may have structural walls. We don't want those ones to be transparent. I'm going to come over here and then change the display settings here from host view to custom. And then if I come here to model categories, I change this one as well to custom. So I can now decide to modify the visibility graphics for this Revit link. I'm going to search here for wall. And right now, I'm going to change the transparency by clicking on this override and changing it here to probably 20%, and I click OK. For the pattern, I'm going to change this from hidden I'm going to turn on this foreground color. I'm going to change the pattern here to solid fill and change the color to a light gray, then click OK. When I'm done, I click OK. If I click on apply, so right now I can now see through the building. When I'm done, I click OK. So that's for the Revit link. Now we want to see the columns as well in this view. So I come back here to the model categories. Now this is for the actual project. I'm going to search here for structural columns. Now you have to make sure that it is structural columns. There are two types of columns, which are textural columns, and we have structural columns. If I scroll down, you're going to see structural columns here. So over here now, I'm going to set the pattern. I'm going to change it to solid fill, and then I'm going to change the color here to a black. I can also specify the actual hue of the color. So I was changing to maybe a lighter gray. If I click OK, if I click on apply, we can now visibly see where those columns are. Now this is a lot much better to understand what is happening in your project. Alright, good. So this is what we'll call it for today. And essentially what I would expect us to do before our next meeting is to go ahead and model the columns in the project. Now once you've done that, all you need to do is just upload it into your projects file so we can actually check your progress as well. Okay, at this point in time, before I just finish the meeting, I want to ask if there are any questions. I'll be glad to address them now. So if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Okay, all right. So in the absence of any questions for now, deadline. Okay, so yeah, there will be a deadline, or there will be a deadline as well. Most of the modeling activities will be slotted for this week, but the specific deadline will be communicated on the Slack channel. That's the general channel. Okay, so please, if you do not have Revit installed, make sure you do that, especially before the end of the week or before the deadline approaches as well. Okay. All right, so once again, I appreciate everybody for joining. Once we have our next meeting, we'll go over the modeling intricacies of other elements such as the floors, the beams, and staircases as well, and the roof also. Okay, so thank you everybody for joining. I do hope you had a great meeting. We would continue from where we stopped in our next meeting. If you have any questions, I do encourage as well you ask them on the general channel of our Slack platform. You can also send me a personal message as well. During our consulting hours, I will take time as well to address any issues that may come up. Okay. So also, as well, I encourage everybody to get Drive for Desktop installed. I'll also put you through on how to link the shortcuts to the folder, and then I'll make the recording for this available as soon as possible so everybody can actually start. So thank you again. For more information to be communicated on the Slack platform, and I look forward to seeing you in our next program.